We're now on the record. Actually, they changed that. It used to say on the record. Now it just says recording. I guess people didn't understand what that was. So, hey, this is Don the Idea Guy. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We're going to absolutely start on time because that's how we roll. I have my special guest and special friend, Whitney Bishop, who is the head cheese and the big kahuna at the Whitney Bishop Experience.
Right.
I've had the pleasure of knowing her for several years now. We've worked on some projects, and now I get to help her with the launch of a brand new project, and that's kind of what we wanted to get together tonight to talk about. And with that, Whitney, I'm going to turn it over to you. Give the background on you and intro the project when you're ready.
Okay. So I am a meeting facilitator, trainer, accountability partner, but what I really like to call myself is a change agent. So I help individuals and groups really move forward when they're facing change or challenge of some kind. And it is my pleasure to be there alongside the journey. And over the last 20 years or so, in the different people that I've worked with and run across, I have found myself asking a similar set of questions in a similar order to get a similar result. And I finally decided it was time to write it down and make it a thing. And over the last 6 years or so, I've really been testing it, working with it, and finally got brave enough to release it into the world and let the world see my baby, so to speak.
And give the background on the baby.
Okay, so
with the drum roll now, right?
Yeah. So really, it's a philosophy. It's a way of thinking about life. It's a way of thinking about work and challenges that really starts with possibility and being willing to suspend disbelief, being willing to get curious, and being willing to create something really amazing and create a new possibility, something other than what is, if that's what you are looking to do that. So it's really around possibility and then dealing with change. Nobody really loves change.
That's not true.
Some people say that they do, but not everybody really does. And it's situational. So it depends on what kind of change and when and who says so, et cetera, right? So change happens in an instant, change happens over time, and change happens because you say so. And at any given moment, you can have a lot of resistance and a lot of baggage associated with change. So creating possibility brings change. Learning how to embrace change and deal with it is its own special sort of experience. And then being willing to take action and be accountable is sort of the other piece to the Make 3 Changes philosophy. And that is what I'm super excited to bring to the world.
So we have Make 3 Changes pending launch here in just a few weeks, really.
Yeah, November 3rd. November 3rd. I can't believe it.
On the 3rd of November 3rd. Make 3 Changes on the 3rd. That's easy to remember. You don't even have to put it on your calendar, but you should. But you've been working on this for a much longer time. You had launched Make 3 Changes before you even launched your regular website, is what it felt like.
Yeah, I did. I was really playing with it, seeing, I think, honestly, I was feeling not super confident and really wanting to just sort of test the waters and see what happened. And what I found was people responded. And people responded often to say, you know what, I like the way you positioned that. I like the way you said that. It became a filter through which I communicated and saw the world, and it was helping people. It was helping people think differently and create different possibilities, and that excited me. And so it became clear to me that I needed to do this in a way that was more deliberate and more far-reaching than I had thought about it before, and go a little bigger instead of smaller.
Yeah, and that was a big part of your transition, because Make 3 Change was kind of your signature thing.
Right.
And then you kind of put it into a chrysalis to emerge. Make 3 Changes went through its own change.
It did.
And what things led to that change? And are there 3 things that changed in Make 3 Changes?
Yes. So one of them was sort of a personal acceptance that I needed to be okay with being the brand. I was the one doing the work. I was the one serving individuals, and that I needed to get clear about who I was as a person in service to the world, and that I needed to brand that, because the other thing that's true about me is that I'm a creator. Much like you, I am constantly coming up with ideas and things to do, and Make 3 Changes isn't the first thing that I've created. It won't be the last thing. And so what my team was telling me is that this is one of many. And we want to see you get comfortable with establishing your brand and your audience and then release something. And so that's kind of how it pushed back. So the changes that I needed to make were I needed to accept that it was possible that I could be the brand. Who was I? I wasn't a Jeffrey Gitomer. I wasn't a Sally Hogshead. I wasn't a Darren Hardy. And but my team assured me that I was the Whitney Bishop, and there weren't any other of those running around. So I needed to get out there in front.
And I think we've talked before about the people we've admired and kind of used as a template for what we do. But I think a mistake that we've seen other people make, and we're trying not to make that mistake, is to try and be that person. See a lot of people trying to signing up for those coaching programs and signing up for those affiliations where, they're making their decisions to present somebody else's material rather than building their own. Talk more about your decision to go down that path and how this kind of program emerges from not you're learning from your mentors. That's what they're there for, but you don't need to become the mentor. There's already one of them. Right.
So just having faith and knowledge that the work that I was doing was in service, that creating, that I had, as a 50-year-old woman, nearly 50-year-old woman, I had experiences and knowledge and expertise in a certain blend of something that was every bit as necessary as some of the things that I learned from, admired, emulated, trained, taught, and then finally internalized and said, I can do this. It's time for me to do this. And then the last change around that was really hiring people, surrounding myself with people like yourself who were going to push me to step outside of my comfort zone and do a blab at 7:30 at night on a Monday, but who were really going to push me to play bigger and to be bigger and to serve bigger. And so that's what I had to do. I had to get out of my own way.
Yeah, and I think it's huge. The first time you talked to me about Make 3 Changes, one, I just love the name because people get so intimidated. Like you mentioned earlier, people get so intimidated by change. I love change. I get bored easily. I love new ideas, and new ideas, they either create change or they come from change. So I loved it. And the fact that you talk about change, everybody talks about change, positive or negative, they're talking about change, but the ability to function within it or to create the change or to be burdened by the changes that are coming down the pipeline that people have to fit within. I just love the fact that it wasn't change, all capital letters, and you're overwhelmed with this tidal wave of change. You kind of broke it down to Make 3 Changes. So you're going to have to deal with change, but maybe just 3. Everybody could deal with one piece maybe, but one piece of change is unlikely. It's not realistic. But 3 things. Can we affect change in our lives with just 3 things? And you didn't say what the 3 things were, just that you could pick the 3. So talk more about why not make 2 changes? Why not make 5 changes? How'd you end up with Make 3 Changes?
And Charlene, I see your question, and I will answer it in just a minute as soon as I answer his. So for me, it's about personal accountability and ownership and understanding that even in situations where I felt like I did not have a lot of control, maybe where I felt like I just was throwing up my hands and I was ready to collapse, that in all likelihood, as I pushed through the framework of identifying, here's where I am, here's where I want to be, here's what I think I need, here's what I think it would look like if it worked, so getting focused on the solution, then it allowed me to say, all right, so what 3 changes am I willing to make in order to move forward and do that? Instead of, well, what does somebody else need to do for me, and what does somebody else need to remove from me? It's really about pushing people to, even if they were 3 small things that they could do to take ownership and to take control of the situation and to move forward because they said so, as opposed to being pulled or dragged because someone else says so. That's the heart of it. That there's always something that you can do, but you have to be willing to do it.
And I think the other point of differentiation there is, what are the 3 things that you, the individual facing change, are willing to do, versus what are the 3 things we got to make those other guys do to affect the change? Our change would happen if those other guys would just do what we said.
Right. And because, it's not about the other guys. It's here's spoiler alert. It's not about anybody else. There may be other people in the way. There may be other people involved, but ultimately you are the one that has control. You are the one that has you have the potential to turn that around. And that's what the framework is so good at being able to do. So Charlene's asking me a question here about, do you guide them on identifying those 3 changes and what happens when the decision's made? And then Ginger, hey, it's great to see you. And I don't like being pulled or dragged either. So yes, a little bit, but mostly the beauty of this framework and the simplicity of it. And Don, if you think it's okay to kind of throw it out there a little bit to explain how it works, I will do that. What do you think?
Absolutely. It seems like a good opportunity to do it, because it's 3 changes, but it's not like, here's the 3, go do them.
Yeah.
You have to determine what they are. So how do you help them pull that out?
So I would use an example. I was an executive director for a financial capability nonprofit for 5 years. And I work with both individuals and groups, Charlene. But one of the things that was always happening was I had this group of women who were really in transition, really struggling, especially around their financial lives. And going in and delivering training or workshops around how to save more money and how to make more money and how to manage their financial lives was not having the same effect as when I started to ask them, hey, so give me some words to describe how you're feeling about the situation that you find yourself in right now. It was so powerful to have a group of women identify for themselves, here's what I'm feeling and thinking, many of whom would not have the support network or the courage to necessarily answer those questions on their own or reflect on those things. So getting clear that there was a lot of fear, a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, and getting that out there and seeing that so many of the other women were having that same experience was in itself eye-opening. The next question then becomes, how would you like to feel? What are some of the words and phrases, thoughts and beliefs that you would like to have when you think about your financial life? And those words were completely different. So proud, accomplished, secure, safe, this whole list of words that actually the energy in the room lifted and people began to really go like, yeah, that's how I want to feel. And in that moment, people created the possibility that they could actually even feel like that about their money. And the next question becomes, what do you think you need in order to move from where you are now to where you want to be? And the answers came quickly. I need a better job, or I need support, or I need education. There's a whole long list of things that they were capable of securing for themselves. And it was amazing to just see how much more empowered they felt about who they were. And it works whether you're the mother of a teenager who is struggling with some decisions, to walk them through the framework, or a group of women in a similar situation, or a nonprofit or a corporate organization that's struggling with a decision. Because the beauty of it is that when you get them connected to what's possible for them, and people begin to embody that, they begin to see, these are the steps that I could take to get there. And that's what the changes really become. What changes are you willing to make? Not the standard ones like, well, you can open up a separate checking account, or you could save, when next time you get a raise, you can put a little bit of money over there. I don't need to tell them that. They need to be bought into what it is that they think they need to do in order to move from where they are now to where they want to be.
Right.
So it's so liberating.
So there's a lot of pieces in there. I'm going to back up and revisit some of them. All right.
Yeah.
So when you help them identify the changes they could be making. Because let's go back to make 3 changes. Now I'm overwhelmed. Oh my God, I've got 5 pages of changes I could be making. Does your program help them set the priority? Do the priorities become self-evident as they work through it? Is there a natural flow? Is there a natural flow of this is going to be first? Are you helping them rank them?
They become so self-evident. And the other beautiful debrief about this is to say, all right, so when you're making decisions about what you're doing, if you are making decisions from the headspace of where you are now, which largely for people in their current state is not overwhelmingly positive, the decisions that you make aren't as effective. So what do you need to do to move over to this state of mind where something different is possible? If you felt comfortable and secure, what kind of decision would you make? And that's the other piece about the changes that they're committing to, because when the going gets tough and they don't feel like doing it, that's a piece that they can come back to and say, yes, but if I make that choice of decision, that's going to push me back over here where I said I didn't want to be, further away from what I thought was possible for me. And all of that is about them, not about somebody else, not about something else. But it's like, hey, if I do this, if I go down this road, I am the only one responsible for how that shows up.
Right. And it may even be, these are the things I have to change before I'm willing to embrace that change or affect that change. You know, I have to be willing to make these changes in order to make that longer term change. Or you decide I'm not willing to do that. And that's okay too, because it saves you from stressing over wanting to make that change.
And it's you're owning it. You're saying out loud, I'm not willing to do that. And eventually you get tired of hearing yourself say, I'm not voting for me. I'm not voting for what's in my best interest. Eventually you get tired of that. And you start to really realize how much of that you have control over.
Or, you know, not all change is good change.
Right.
Not all change is good for everybody. Not all change is good for the individual. And there may be some people facing a change in their corporate structure that decide, you know, to embrace that change, to continue that role. They're going to have to change a couple of things in their life, and that might not be a good change for them, and they can decide the change they have to make is to change jobs, change positions, right? So you gave the example of working with a group at the nonprofit, but Make 3 Changes works for
anywhere,
corporate and nonprofit and individuals, right?
Yeah. So, you know, in a corporate setting, you may have a change, you may have a merger, you may have a change in leadership, a change in process or system. And ultimately, you want to get the stakeholders together and ask them, hey, give me some words to describe how you're feeling now about this change that has either happened or it's coming. Give us some words to describe how you'd like to feel about the change that's happened or coming. And then what do you need? And almost every single time when I ask that question of a corporate group around something like that, it's more information, more time. And those are 2 really big things that managers need to remember and to keep up with, is that if they just give people a heads up, give people time, and give people the information that they're looking for, a lot of times they can stop shooting themselves in the foot and dealing with the resistance of the team. So beyond Make 3 Changes, there's a lot of work that goes into helping managers, leaders, and individual contributors understand why they respond to change the way they do and how we're sort of set up to deal with change.
What is the best time for a company to bring you in to talk about Make 3 Changes? Is it before they make that decision? Is it in the midst of it? Is it after they discover there's chaos? What's a good time to work through this Make 3 Changes flow?
Most of the time I don't get brought in until afterwards, when people are kind of up in uproar and productivity is down and people
morale's down.
Morale is down. That's often the time when I am invited in. Sometimes it happens on the front end, and that's a beautiful place to be with that. If you can get in the front of change and give people the benefit of clarity around what is the vision, what is the real purpose of what we're doing, and help me understand why it matters to me. So just helping people get clear about that. And the framework actually helps a team or a group get clear that just because there's a couple of people who are really upset about it, it may not be the whole team. And that may be the assumption that the organization is making. Well, everybody's upset. Well, the truth is that there's two people upset, and
they're just really loud. They're just really loud, two people.
But it's not that when you pull the whole group together, what you see is that most people are on the acceptance end or are willing to figure out how to move forward.
So that's awesome that there's a company that's willing to make that investment in their people in the process. Smarter if they do it pre-change. That might be a note for us to jot down and explore later. Is there a pre-change kit that you can send to the corporations? But not every company realizes that. Not every company budgets for change, right? What can an individual do inside that company that release their new, this is what we're going to do, deal with it. Like, go team. We'll have free pizza on Friday to celebrate this. But other than that, you're all on your own. What are some things that an individual can do to help them accept and adapt to corporate change?
They can identify how they feel about it. They can take a few minutes and realize that that this is how they're feeling about it, whether it's rational or not, where it's connected. So why, getting curious about why it might feel that way, and then just being willing to say, I can see myself responding differently to this. I have to create the possibility that this is how I want to feel about this change, and knowing who I am and being self-aware, this is what I think I need in order to be able to get there. And then my directive around the change, what are you willing to change? You have to be willing to go ask for what you need. You have to be willing to ask the boss for the information that you need to be able to make decisions. You have to be able to talk with your colleagues or coworkers about how you really feel about the change instead of concealing it. And you have to be willing to manage your expectations maybe for a little bit. So to expect that in the midst of this change that things will remain the same is mismanaging expectations, and you can control that.
So I'm going to jump back to more on the personal study, because I'm a big proponent of you've got power. You've got your own power. You can make the investment in yourself. You can go read the right books. You can take the right courses to help you. If the company didn't put gas in your car, and if the company didn't buy you lunch today, you'd still go eat and you'd still have to drive someplace. So
you don't have a laptop, go buy your own.
That's a really good line. That's a really good line.
I love it. Get him. Get him.
So talk about the individual course of study and who that's good for. When is it good for them?
I think I have seen it work really well with young adults who are struggling, and oftentimes just getting them clear about. So as a parent of young adults, having a tool like this that has helped me make this a little more conversational with my kids about what they're experiencing, and maybe they're experiencing some discomfort and they don't like it. And my question to them is, well, how do you want to feel about this situation? And they tell me, and I say, well, what do you think you need? And they tell me, and it usually becomes so crystal clear that there's one or two things that they can do about it. And I'll say, well, what are you willing to do about it? What are you willing to make some changes in order to feel differently and move forward? They can grasp it. And then the individual who's trying to figure out whether they want to make a big change, or who's had a big change. We talked earlier that change happens in an instant, change happens over time, and change happens because you say so. And so any of those moments in your life where you are impacted, where you have had a change made for you that now you have to deal with, or you just say, you know what, I'm getting out of this field that I've been in for 20 years because I'm passionate about this, and I'm at a point where I'm ready to step out and try something new. It's a great time to just explore it. And it's something that you can come back to over and over again. Anytime that you feel stuck or frustrated, or it's a great conversational tool for managers and leaders to talk with their employees. It's great for spouses to talk with one another. And you and I have talked about this. I mean, there's any number of applications for this, and I hope that we'll be building a library of tools, little workbooks for how to use the framework in these different contexts.
Yeah, I could really see the make 3 changes for students
Yes.
And I mean, there's almost one for the different age groups. You know, you're going into middle school, you're going to high school, you're going to college, and then your first job kind of a thing. That's a completely different universe, every one of those shifts. And they may need guidance, the different modules, the expansion packs for each of those. In your program, do you have, is it the global Make 3 Changes? This is how I make my life better. It's personal, professional, and I don't know, family, or is it Make 3 Changes? There's 3 changes in the personal, there's 3 changes in health, there's 3. Is there a recommended process, or is the simple answer just yes, all of those, all the above?
All of it, right? Yeah. It's simplicity. I can't wait to release it because I really feel like the simplicity of it is the beauty of it. It's elegant. It's simple. It's clear. It can be as big and connected to each other as it wants to be, or it can simply be, I'm stuck in this moment and I need to get unstuck. I need to get out of this frame of mind, out of this place. And so I'm going to use it. And if that's all I ever do and it moves me forward, great. Or it can become a practice. It can become a habit. It can become the thing that you do when you feel that stuckness, or the thing that you bring up in the meeting with the team when you're stuck. So it has tons of application, and I continue to use it with groups. I continue to be amazed at the response, and humbled and honored and just frankly excited to get it out there finally. Well,
we talked about the official launch is November 3rd, but the website's up where people can sign up for it now, right?
Yeah, they can sign up, and the sort of poster manifesto that's got a lot of the heart and core of the philosophy that can serve to inspire and just point someone in a different direction when they're in a mindset and in a place that is not moving them forward. At any point, they can just sort of glance over at this thing and say, okay.
Right. So I've
got a new direction.
Make3changes.com. So it's the number 3. You don't have to spell it out.
3changes.com.
Make3changes.com. Right now, all you need to do is put in your name and email address, I think, and you'll be on the list to get the manifesto, right? When it comes out in a few weeks. Yep. And then as part of that launch, what's the first wave of Make 3 Changes? So the manifesto gets launched, and you've got, then what?
So I have a 30-day challenge that I'm going to be launching that will really help people play with the framework, and we'll be doing a lot of that on Facebook and interacting in that way. And then there is a 3-month program that people can get engaged in that will start in December and end in February, that will carry you over through that holiday hump where most people say, I'll just wait until January 1. No, don't do it. Let's get started before then.
Start now.
Really, and really take 2016 and tell it. These are the changes I'm going to make, and this is the difference that's going to make in my world. It's the difference it's going to make in the lives of the people around me, and the difference it's going to make in the world itself.
Is it self-guided courses? Is it live Blab coaching? Is it one-to-one work, or what's the plan for that?
Yeah, it's a combination of all of those things. So there will be some self-directed work that's coming probably by the end of the 3-month time. There'll be a lot of that that we've built. And in the meantime, there'll be a lot of me in it as we get started and get moving so that I can really make sure that it is working the way I envisioned it, intended it, and that it's serving the people who need to be served the most.
You had shared some insight a few weeks ago about one of the projects that's connected to Make 3 Changes, and I really like it. Are you still going to do the 52-week challenge?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, and so my wall has Post-its all over it, and all of the different categories and the different ways to do it. So definitely working on putting some little seeds, planting seeds every week. Make 3 Changes Monday, planting some seeds every week to get people to thinking, hey, if I could just make 3 little changes around this particular area of my life, maybe the way I start my day, maybe the way I end my day, what would that look like? And so that's the hope.
Yeah, I think the 52-week challenge is just going to be so exciting. I think it's this one little piece that you can do every week that'll reinforce the full program that they go through. Or even if they just read the manifesto, it's something they can take action on and move forward. One of your lines that I have not heard, you've come close to using it tonight, but you haven't used it yet, And that's what does it look like if it works?
It's the magic question. It
Right?
is the magic question. So it was given to me by a brilliant boss who was so patient with me, and I found myself frustrated consistently. And instead of saying what's wrong or what's troubling you or tell me what's the matter, her question was always, Whitney, have a seat. Tell me, what do you think it would look like if it worked? And it was brilliant because as a boss, she didn't need to listen to me go on a tirade for 30 minutes. What she got to hear was how I created solutions and how I problem solved and how I made decisions. And that helped her manage me so much more effectively than if she just endured my 30 minutes of puking about what I hated about my job. What she got to hear was she got to learn a little something about me. She got to listen to a far more interesting conversation, and she got credit for helping me feel better, even though she didn't have to make any of the changes that I had recommended. I felt better by simply moving through that process. And if I'm being honest, I think that's probably one of those moments where Make 3 Changes got the spark, because it's certainly a key piece of it. But it really made me realize that, oh, it doesn't have to be this crappy all the time. It actually could look different. And I actually have the power to create that and then potentially do something about that. How about that?
I mean, the last thing anybody needs, we as individuals don't like it when somebody comes to us to complain. We want, great, it's broken. What's a solution to fix it? And my take was always, great, bring me solutions. I agree with you. So anything can be improved. I might think it's working perfectly, but if you don't, tell me how you think we can make it better.
Yeah.
And this past boss of yours just tweaked that line so much to go, what's the world look like?
Yeah.
Either our little world here or the world at large. What's it look like if it's working right?
It was brilliant.
Yeah.
It's the question I ask groups all the time when they get stuck, or a one-to-one client that I'm working with. I'll say, what would it look like if it worked? Tell me, what do you see as the potential solutions? And I learned so much through asking that, and the group learns so much about each other. It's a beautiful gift of a question. So I can't wait to also release that.
So I think we'll wind down now. We'll tell them one more time to go to make3changes.com to register. They'll get free access to the manifesto if they sign up before the launch, and all kinds of other cool stuff that you're planning. But what are three changes everybody could make to make their life a little bit better?
So the first is definitely to be curious instead of critical. When you find yourself going down the path of really giving things, that scrunched up face, soften that, right? Like, be curious about things. Be curious about why you respond the way you do to certain people or certain situations. Be curious about why that triggers you in that way. Be curious about what you think about things. So if you can develop a practice of being curious instead of immediately being critical, that will make a huge difference in your life, just huge. So that's the first. The second would be to really be thinking about how much of my time every day am I being deliberate. If you could pick a way to be more deliberate every day, I choose the start of my day as a place where I'm extremely deliberate about how I spend my time, energy, and resources, or first thing in the morning. And that has had a really profound impact on my life, on my business, on my mental health, to really protect that first part of the day so that I am out there in the world in a completely different way than on the days where I just get out of bed and run and roll and fly with it. And then the third would be to ask for what you need. I don't think we do that often enough. And I think a lot of times we have a lot of questions that we want to ask people. We're making a lot of assumptions. And if we could ask a few questions and get clear about what we might need in order to think differently about it, but we often don't ask the question. And so I would just say, remember to ask for what you need.
And sometimes what you might need is like 5 more minutes to think about it. I know that sometimes people want an answer on something like, well, give me a minute. I need to percolate, and I'll have better ideas for you in 5 minutes than you'd get right now.
So not only, asking for what you need and giving other people permission to ask for what they need.
Good point.
That's a huge gift. Huge gift.
All right. Well, Whitney Bishop, thank you so much for being my guest tonight on Blab. It was an experience, as advertised. It was an experience. We're gonna close out the recording here in a minute, but everybody who subscribed will automatically get the alert that's available. Whitney, I'll share the download with you so that you can take it and embed it in your site, and you'll have the audio stuff, so we can republish that and use it as we need it for the Make 3 Changes launch.
And I want us to do this maybe a few more times, maybe on Monday, and open up a few seats and maybe invite somebody to go through the framework. I'll get out my markers, I'll get out my little whiteboard, and we can have a little fun. I love this platform, and thanks for inviting me to do this with you today.
I think we need to make sure people know that how long it's going to go on, because I've seen Blabs go on for ages, and we amass more people, and I think we did have some folks who were willing to come in and sit in a hot seat and ask some questions, but they had to bail soon. So maybe we can do it at a different time. But we'll experiment and see what's going on. The nice thing about Blab is it's around, it's new, it's fun, it's free. So absolutely, we'll do this again. Okay.
Great.
All right. Stop the recording here. Hold